Ooh, look what you made me do.
I never knew you were such a Taylor Swift stan until today.
I'm Taylor Swift to the core, baby.
Baby.
Swiftie.
Yes. We are Swifties in this household.
Swifties. Let's go.
Except for I haven't even listened to the new album yet.
Yeah, I've listened to like 4 songs. And they were mostly good.
Bangers.
I remember 2 of them, actually. I don't remember.
What was the other one? I know it was Anti-Hero because we were
the
talking
other
about
one
it
was... Actually, I don't even remember.
Was it Bejeweled?
Yes, that actually literally is. I'm like, I would know the name if I heard it. I'm clearly not enough of a Swiftie.
That's so funny.
We're like fake Swifties, like the in-between.
Whoa, what's this royal we we're using?
I'm using we, and I am using it firmly. We are a we, and we are not real Swifties.
I'm a real Swiftie. I'm sorry that you are prejudiced against women.
Every time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cynical Cinephiles podcast, where we discuss movies. I don't know if you figured that part out yet, but
oh my god,
we do. That's every episode, consistently.
I tried to carry on with the bit, and then I just couldn't.
Yeah, it kind of ended there. Basically, it's like we're 2 parts of Twitter, just very, very different parts of Twitter. We embody different sides of Twitter. I'm like Film Bro Twitter, and you're...
What the fuck am I?
Well, I think that reaction.
I think you need to tell me.
I don't think I do. You're just the other side of Twitter.
Can I be the part of Twitter that has like cute wild animal videos?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah.
Okay, because I really like to watch videos of bears just being themselves.
I mean, respect, honestly.
They have just such big paws.
And little bear ears. They have fur, too.
They do.
Like, it's sometimes
one of my favorite
brown,
qualities.
sometimes black.
Yeah.
Other colors, probably. Anyway, today we're discussing another movie, of course, and that movie this week is Promising Young Woman. Hooray.
Hooray. Finally, I watched it.
At last. I've been trying to get Caitlin to watch this for so fucking long.
I know.
Like,
and we
truly.
watched it together. Do you know how painful it was to not just immediately get to tell you everything I thought?
I was like holding it in. I was like, okay, don't bust out all your fun facts you've been saving for 2 years about this movie. Don't say a thing, a word. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It was a little hard.
I did share a little bit too much with you, though.
What, the hashtag allmen? She just turns to me in the middle of the movie. She goes, I'm not going to spoil anything.
I paused the movie. Like I quite literally paused the movie to look at you and say, we shouldn't talk about this, and I don't want to spoil any of my notes. However, I just want to show you this, and it's just hashtag allmen. That's like this fucking big. It takes up like a quarter of the page.
Yeah, I mean, it fits.
That's so funny. Before we get like really into everything, I know we talk about a lot of movies, having 5 episodes.
Yeah, that's like a lot.
That's like 4 previous
Quite a
movies.
many, yeah.
But like most of the movies that we cover tend to have like multi-layered topics, and some of those topics can range on controversial or triggering. However, due to the content, and I should say I've never felt that it was necessary for us to provide a trigger warning or an official content warning, but this is the episode where I think we need an official trigger warning. So before we get into any of the meat of the podcast, I want to put a trigger warning here. This entire podcast, we will be essentially talking about rape. And so if you think that content is going to trigger you or be offensive to you, you know what? We're giving you a free pass this episode to sit this one out.
Yep. Good little trigger warning there.
Yes.
Now that that's over,
yes,
we can talk about stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Where do we want to start with?
Oh my God.
There's a lot.
There's
to kind of...
Yeah. So I think we need to start by giving them a basic synopsis.
Yes, of course. So This film, let me see, how are we going to deliver the synopsis? There's many different synopses you could deliver, and many of them have spoilers, including the one on HBOMax, which I'll rant about in just a moment. But I think the general synopsis we can give is, you actually give it. I don't trust myself to deliver
So
it.
Caleb's whole thing, I know we're being like really standoffish right now, but like when Caleb and I were talking about the filming this podcast, when we watched the movie, he was like, I don't want to reveal the twist. I don't want to reveal, the bulk of what happens until about midway through the episode. And so he's like, we're like dancing around it because I think that's a good idea. So, just stay tuned. Essentially, the movie opens with a character named Cassie, and we find out that Cassie, once a week, she used to be a med school student, and she drops out. She starts working at a cafe, and once a week she goes out and pretends to get incredibly intoxicated to see if men will take her home. Yep. And then before they rape her, she reveals that she's perfectly sober, kind of as like a scare them straight tactic, right?
Yeah.
And help them to think like, well, if you're now very alarmed that I'm sober, what are we doing here? Yep.
Exactly. It's basically just like a constant thing that's happening. We don't really know why she's no longer in med school. She's just working at like a cafe, still living with her parents. And a big part of the early half of the movie is kind of discovering why she does this, like her bigger points, the things that's influenced her to get to this point,
right,
etc.
Yes. And so that's where most of it comes from, at least about the first half of the movie. It's just her taking different men taking her home and having those conversations with them, which I think is a very interesting concept. I think overall, as far as themes go, it delivered the point it was trying to make, and a point I completely agree with, to be clear, that like men are assholes. But I do think that it's a little bit unrealistic, because I think and maybe this just says more about how I feel about men, but I feel like she would have been murdered already. Like, I think that all it takes is the wrong guy, which I mean is a concept we explore later, but for how long she has been doing this, or that the audience is to assume that she's been doing this, like some guy would have killed her. I mean, unfortunately, like, I mean, I think it's a bigger issue, and it's an issue that I feel like is with the Me Too movement and with Harvey Weinstein and all of these things. It's something that we're able as a society to talk about more. But at the same time, like, there's those ongoing jokes about how like a man's worst fear is that he's going to show up to an online date and the woman's going to be fat or ugly. And then a woman's worst fear is that she's going to get date raped or murdered. Yeah, there's a line in the movie, which was one of my favorite bits, where he's like, it's every guy's worst nightmare to get accused of something like that. And then she's like, you want to know what every woman's worst nightmare is? I have that quote written down. It's actually awful. No, yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of the movie too, is it's like, you get to see both sides, where you're like, the men who are trying to like victimize themselves, be like, I was just, I was a kid, I don't want to be accused, this is going to ruin my life. And like the women who are actually like horribly affected, driven down very dark paths as a result, and like had their lives like fucked up, like really seriously. And I am very lucky in that I have not suffered anything to the extent of what a lot of women have suffered. I mean, I could sit here for hours and talk about the statistics and how awful it is and everything. However, we're supposed to be a comedy podcast, and so I'm not quite sure how we're going to navigate this episode. We have to like touch on the topics, but maybe not like, have a 2-hour deep dive into the depravities of humanity. Of men specifically. Hashtag all men. I feel like, so looking at it like a broader, in terms of my own life, like I feel like I'm friends with a lot of men. I would say that the vast majority of my friends are male, and the reason that I know that they're my friends and that they're people that I like is because, like, I could say something like, I fucking hate all men. And all of my friends are like, so true, Messi.
Slay. Honestly, smitten.
All of the guys that I'm friends with, yourself included, whatever, you'll also shit talk men. Because it's like, you know that, like, you're excluded from, because you don't need to, like, be offended by something you know doesn't apply to you.
Exactly. Yeah,
You're not insecure about
How dare she? She's including me in this
hashtag not all men.
Oh, God. Okay. We'll start. I want to move into a little spoiler, not like the big twist, but just because I want to talk about how much I hate the HBOMax synopsis.
Yes.
I just want to say this.
Yes.
All right. So if you want to go in completely blind, then like maybe do so now, like, and then come back right to here. Right. But this is still not getting into the meat of the twist, so it's all right to stick around. But it is like, you know, it's basically, we're going to be talking about the spoilers that HBOMax already freely gives.
Yep.
Which is that their synopsis literally just tells, like, it's like, yeah, so her friend killed herself, and now she's doing revenge on all these other people, including people who were involved in all these incidents, and like all this shit happened. It's basically just breaking down the plot, and I'm just like, it hurt me when I saw that. How dare they?
Plot description.
Describe the plot. Well, I feel like with this movie particularly, it hurts so much because I feel like one of the best parts of like the first half of the movie is that they don't give you all that information. Like you literally have no idea. Like they very much like drip feed it, where it's like you start getting an idea. You're like, oh, something happened. You don't even find out that her friend was like assaulted or anything like that until like way into the movie. Like they don't actually like verbally say it.
And then they don't say that she killed herself until like almost the end of the movie.
Yeah, literally. It's like, it's not something that they immediately give you. And yeah, if they that's how long they were for just like the killing themselves thing. And it's like the first sentence of the synopsis.
It was like, hey, this girl's best friend killed herself. And
and you're like, wow, that's like a big chunk of the movie I won't be able to enjoy quite in the same way. Like I'm at least lucky in that when I first watched the movie, I did go in completely blind because I was just like, oh, I'll throw this on. I don't even remember where I watched it. I was just like, boom. But it does.
You're like,
me.
oh, Bo Burnham's in this?
Pretty much. It's so funny, honestly, looking back when I first watched this, because I just had zero idea. And then as soon as like she's all drunk, and then you know the guy is kind of getting close to assaulting her while she's seemingly intoxicated, and then she just opens her eyes, and it has like a big like boom.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, the musical cue
I
hits.
Literally got chills from you saying that. I wish that was a joke.
Honestly, and it
hits.
It's like just startling. You're like, oh, this is what's happening.
And it gave me kind of like 80s camp vibes.
Yeah.
Like campy 80s movies. But in a good way. Like it was very stylistic. It looked beautiful. Ugh. I think all of the cinematography and the direction was incredible.
Honestly, yes. No, there's so many different pieces, because I feel like between the costuming and the set design and the cinematography, they crafted such an interesting color palette that also shows the like dichotomy of her personality very well. Where it's like they have these very pastelish colors during like most of the daytime when she's living like as Cassie,
and then like a lot of neon.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, like neon, very dark, like bright, like vibrant, like night life lights. Like it's just, there's such a contrast there, and it's like between her two identities. And I know I read at some point that I don't know the details of it, but I know that they apparently, like, it was like a big thing on set to like establish to everyone in the crew like how different her personalities were, and that they had to like go about everything they were doing differently depending on what like personality mode she was in.
Okay.
And I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, that's very fascinating.
It's just in every aspect of in every technical aspect, you can very much like feel where she's at, and it's really easy to follow along because of how strikingly different they are, and they capture her personality just visually on screen so well. Not even like including how terrific the actress is in the movie.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Phenomenal. Oh my gosh.
I was also delighted at how funny it was. Like, for covering such an intense, awful topic, it was hilarious.
It does such a good job balancing the like tone. I remember also like watching it the first time, just being thrown at first because I was like, wait, is this more serious? And I was like, oh no, it is kind of like they really do, like they're able to just perfectly hit that middle point where it can kind of be like a satire and like lean into those funnier aspects, but also like, you know, when it needs to be serious, it can be fucking serious. Yeah. Like it's not gonna hold back.
No. And it was like the serious tones were very much like jaw open, hand over mouth fucking moments. And then like there were intense. Yeah. Like and then there were moments where the comedy is being, what I appreciated about the comedy specifically was that none of it was at the expense of the idea of rape to begin with. And that's something that's very important to me, is making sure that like these topics are not being trivialized and like made to seem like a joke, because it's fucking not.
Yeah, if anything, it makes jokes of like the men in those situations. It doesn't 100%. Make a joke of the incident itself. It very much takes that seriously while also like mocking some of the people who are involved.
As they should, because honestly, some of the men's reactions in it are, I mean, it's fucking shit we've heard time and time again. Like specifically the getting accused is a man's worst nightmare. Yeah. It's like,
you're like, really?
One of the other lines that I thought was really funny, and it was with the guy who did coke while also being a writer, and his book was awful. Like, I swear to God, I've met 15 men exactly like him. And he was like, when she reveals she's sober and she's like trying to talk to him, he's like, "You're not even that hot."
yeah. Just pulling that. Oh my God.
So funny.
I also just love how his demeanor in that scene switches. To paint it out for you, this is like one of the early scenes in the film. And I think the first scene where we fully get to understand like what she's actually doing in these situations.
Right. I thought she was killing him.
Honestly, yeah, I think like the first scene like ends so ambiguously. You don't know like exactly is she killing them? Is she just leaving? Like what's she doing after this? This is the first time we really get to see that. And she's basically intoxicated. He's trying to have sex with her and forcing her to have cocaine when she clearly is so belligerent she couldn't even consent if she could. She's not even close to being able to consent. Like it's real bad. She's like falling asleep and he's trying to like wake her up so that he can.
She like asks him to get her water, and you see him roll his eyes while he's like walking to get her water.
Oh my gosh. It's yikes. But once she actually like finally like snaps out of it and is like clearly not actually even remotely drunk, is fully sober, and is like, "Oh, so what are you doing again?" And he immediately goes from like this like trying to take advantage of her, just being like actually scared, like he's clearly like terrified of her, and he's like, and "Get the fuck angry,
out!"
Yeah, he's like, "Get the fuck out!" And she's like, "I thought you wanted me to stay. I'm gonna stay because you were begging me. You said I had to stay even when I wanted to go, so I'm gonna stay." And he's like, "No, get the fuck!" And it's just like, I love how they just fucking they pull that switch, and you really see like what his intentions are.
Yes, and then what she also does is she walks very close to them. She like straightens up her back, and she gets within like inches of their face, and like is like, "Maybe you'll think twice now," and then fucking leaves. And it's just like such a power moment.
Honestly, it's incredibly dumb. Like the tension they build in that scene too, as she's like just revealing everything and like talking about, kind of giving her own like thesis, really, where she's like, "This is what you need to fucking like realize," like, pointing out their own hypocrisy and shit like that. It's peak. It's
really good. I think we should talk about Bo Burnham.
I think we should. Should we officially put a spoiler warning?
This whole fucking episode is a spoiler warning. True. All of our episodes are
ultimate spoiler warning.
Oh my God. This is not as big of a deal as you think it is.
I think it is.
You think that, okay, I would like to point, so this movie is about women and women's rights, and like, and you're like, your favorite part of this movie is the man.
I don't think that's true. Exactly.
You're like, the biggest highlight of this movie is that Bo Burnham's in it.
Well, let me officially just put that last spoiler. This is your last chance, all right? Because we're talking about the real spoiler. Yes. All right. Now I'll say, no, the real highlight is that his casting is meant to make you think he's gonna be the best part, and then you realize,
and then you realize he's a huge dick.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and this is one of the facts I really have wanted to talk about, is the director has like openly talked about how all the men they cast in this movie, they purposely cast men who are known for being in roles in different shows or movies or whatever, where they're like really nice, like wholesome people. Like even the guy who did like cocaine and stuff, he played like McLovin in Superbad, and he's usually just like an inoffensive dork. I think, did they have a guy from New Girl in there somewhere? Yep. And,
at Al's bachelor party, the best man, he plays Schmidt in New Girl.
Yep. And then of course the biggest example is Bo Burnham, who's just like a harmless guy. Like everyone fucking loves him, and even the movie makes you like him a lot.
I fucking loved him.
And then other shoe drops.
Yes. So one of my favorite scene with Bo Burnham, while we still like him
before you hate him,
was you can spit in my coffee if you want to, and then she does. Actually, and then he drinks it.
So smooth. Or just him singing. What was the song? What artist was it?
Oh fuck, I can't remember. They're in like the pharmacy.
Yeah, and they're just like singing along to some like female pop artist or something.
Yes,
it's great. He's great. The thing is, Bo Burnham as a performer can just deliver. It's just terrific comedy. His performances are always great.
I wrote, Bo is so cute. I love him.
I think that's just what makes it so effective too, is it's like it really goes the extra fucking mile to show you that like anyone could be like a predator like that. Like you could be the most like harmless seeming person. Like even like Bo Burnham's character, for example, had like a lot of moments early in the film where he's like worrying about her consent and being like, hey, we don't have to do anything if you don't want to. And, and it makes you like put your guard down almost, where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the one actually good guy in the movie.
Because I thought, the point that I thought the movie was trying to make, and I was very hesitant before we find out the twist, is that I thought it was going to be like, especially after she goes and talks to Nina's mom. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like a whole, not all men, we can trust men. Like sometimes you got to just move on. And I was putting my guard back up about like the movie, because I was like, oh, this is not a message I stand behind, right? Yeah. And then the video is shown, and so essentially I know we're like kind of referencing whatever. What happens is that Ryan, who is Bo Burnham's character, reveals that he is friends with this man named Al. Al is the one who sexually assaulted Nina. And then after Nina tried to take him to court, his lawyer bullied her out of court. She drops the case and then she kills herself. Yeah. And so when Cassie finds out that Ryan is still friends with Al, she tries to get information off of him. And this sparks a plan of how she's going to progressively ruin the lives of everyone leading up to Al. Yeah. And so she takes like one of her old female friends who was on Al's side back in med school.
Despite knowing the truth about the whole situation.
Takes her out to lunch, gets her really drunk, and then makes her think that she was assaulted, which I'm not sure.
Not a good thing. The thing is,
I think I know exactly what you're going to say. That's the thing about this narrator is that I stand behind everything that she's saying, but she's still not a good person.
Exactly. She's a very nuanced character. Yes. And I'm excited to dissect a little later. Right. But yeah, no. So she does all that, and then finally the big shoe drop is when that girl gives her basically a tape of the actual assault itself. And as she's watching it, and as we don't see the tape, of course, but we hear it, and we hear a certain voice, and we hear Ryan's voice. We hear Ryan, Bo Burnham's voice.
He's like, stop. Oh my God. And they're like, because all of his friends watched this assault happen.
It was just like, they're all kind of just surrounding it, and he was just there, and he hadn't said anything, and he like knew all of this. And the thing is, what really is like the damning thing against Ryan in the end is the way he responds to this being
100%. And the other damning thing is that he thinks that he didn't do anything wrong. Because, and I think that's the bigger point, is that, like, obviously he knows that she's friends with Nina. She wears a necklace that says Nina around her neck. But he sees her, he sees that she's wearing that necklace, and it doesn't even occur to him that it's not like he's hiding anything, because he genuinely doesn't see what's wrong until she accuses him and brings forth the tape and is like, what the fuck is this? And then he's like, oh no, I was a kid. I was in...
oh my gosh.
You're 20 fucking years old.
If you're in med school, you're a grown adult.
You are an adult.
And that's one of the worst... I feel like that's one of those lines that they really do pull from reality, because you hear that... I always... it's the promising young man argument. Literally is what it is. Where you're like, oh, he was just a kid. He couldn't think for himself. He didn't know right from wrong. I'm like, you're
an adult.
Yeah, you're in med school. You are a grown man.
Learning medicine to take care of human beings. You are smart enough to know that this is a bad fucking move, champ.
Literally, it's... Oh my God. It just boils my blood when I hear that in reality. So 100%. To hear him like using that as his main like defense, being like, oh, I was just a kid. It just doesn't, you know, and then
it's like, fuck you.
Yeah. And as he's like finally realizing that she's like serious about like her things, that's when he starts getting hostile, and you're like, holy shit. Like when he's like, then she's like threatening. She's like, yeah, so either give me this information or I'll you'll get you fired from your job. And he's like, well, then both of us won't be a doctor, you fucking failure. And it's just like, it fucking like rips into you. You're like, oh,
I felt like I was a fucking failure.
It's just like, it's just like you get to see the true side of people in those sorts of moments. And it's like this whole time, there's like a darkness under there that you can only see in like those very rare moments. And it's really, it's so effective. It just makes you fucking feel like your heart's ripped out. Yeah.
There's something I wanted to talk about. So, and it's something that had to have been an intentional choice from the director. In the scene where, what's her name? Like Jessica or Mackenzie or what the fuck?
Alison Brie's character? Maybe? The one who, the number one on her list of people. Yeah.
Yeah. The shot, okay, sorry, my brain's going crazy. The shot where they walk in to sit down, you can't see their faces. And I feel like that was a direct reference of the trope of women's heads getting cut off. Like that is an ongoing joke or trope, specifically with movie posters, where it's called the Headless Woman, where essentially these women are only being looked at and used for their bodies on these posters.
Oh, okay.
But you don't see their faces.
Yeah.
But you can see that as they're hugging and embracing, and they're both wearing these gorgeous, like, little black dresses, you can't see their faces.
Interesting. I hadn't caught that.
Yeah.
That I could totally see that being intentional. That seems like it.
If you want to go down a rabbit hole, Google Headless Woman movie trope, and you'll have hours of just like, holy fucking shit. Like,
interesting.
Ones that come to my head like right now are like American Pie, and oh god, apparently it's only American Pie in my head right now. But yes, offender. It's absolutely wild.
That's
another thing that I think is hilarious is the intentional choice of putting most of the men, especially the ones who are like the offenders, in khakis. I know that I know that may seem like that's not it. It's kind of like a khaki whatever, but I feel like khakis are associated with like dads or like working professional men. And so the idea of all of these men who are the offenders being put in khakis, not in like ripped jeans, not in, you know, whatever. It's like they're wearing business casual, all of them.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I mean, it really does a terrific job, I think, at showing you just who these people really are. Like, I don't know. I almost wonder if the character herself was actually specifically, like, targeting or, like, trying to get men who would, like... Because her whole move was to basically make her seem vulnerable so that the person could, like, try to help her first before doing it. So I almost wonder if she was intentionally, like, trying to pull in, like, the not as obvious predators.
I'm sure, because it's almost always nice guys.
Yeah. It's literally, it's, like, almost exclusively guys who are like, oh, or, like, the fake feminist stuff. Like, I think the guy who was, like, doing coke and, like, writing his novel and shit was like at one point like, oh, you shouldn't, you don't need that makeup, man. Why do you always wear makeup?
Drives me fucking crazy, by the way. Oh my God, yeah. Anytime that I hear a man utter like you're wearing too much makeup, it makes me lose my mind. And then these same men will post pictures of like Kylie Jenner or something like that, and she'll be wearing like mascara, foundation, bronzer, but like not glittery eyeshadow. Yeah. And they'll be like, see, she looks so much better with a fresh face. It's like, no. Do you really, truly, honestly believe that Kylie Jenner would post a bare-faced picture on the internet with no retouching?
They're also the same type of people who would probably like be fucking all neckbeardy on the internet, posting pictures of like celebrities or just people like without makeup on, being like, they're actually ugly. They're lying to 100%. You because that's like they just don't get how any of that shit works.
In that scene with the man doing coke, sorry, that's an incredible scene.
It's so good.
But when he says whoa, when he realizes that she's sober, he says whoa, and at the exact same time he says whoa, there's a thunder strike, like a thunder crash.
Yeah
It's so good.
They really play up like the tension and kind of like suspense in those early scenes before you like fully realize what her like thing is. And it works so well because it like they almost like put you in the moment of like feeling the fear that these men are feeling, having their own like dominance ripped out from under them or whatever.
I don't want to give away all of our quotes that will be coming for quote of the movie, but I do think that this quote is a really big contender for quote of the movie. It's in the scene where Bo Burnham's character catches her in her scheme, but like not really. He thinks that she's just going home with another guy, but it's not Bo Burnham's line. It's the guy that she was going to go home with when he realizes that she's sober. He says, why do you guys have to ruin everything?
Yeah. Oh my God. Dude.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
And I remember like watching this and seeing, you know, like Bo Burnham's character, who at this point we think is perfectly wholesome and good.
Yeah.
And when she goes and apologizes to him and she's like, I can't explain it, but like, I promise this will never happen again. I remember sitting there just screaming in my head, like, just tell him what's going on. And then we find out #allmen, and that it was probably a very good thing that she didn't tell him like what her actual plan was.
It's just, and then the other thing, actually, before moving on, because I do want to talk about Cassie's character, I didn't mention this with Ryan earlier, but another like just really painful scene with him that just fully like continues to drive in just how awful he kind of really is towards the end of the movie when they have the scene with like the detective showing up to like ask him about what happened to Cassie. You were maybe one of the last people seen with her, and then he just kind of
like he leans into the lie and he's like, yeah, it was a work trip. Like, yeah, she mentioned that to me.
And more than anything, you know what he feels there? Relief, which is a big thing, since Cassie, in her confrontation with Al at the end, makes a big point of saying, you were probably relieved when she killed herself, didn't you? Because you no longer had to worry about her being out there and you didn't have to live with the guilt. And then that's juxtaposed with like 2 scenes later having Ryan be like, oh, and like clearly be like calmer now that he knows that Cassie's gone. And it's just like...
yeah. Like, that's crazy, because I really thought we were going to get a redemption arc when he learns that she was missing. I thought we were going to have like a 180, but it was exclusively wishful thinking.
They doubled down, and it fucking hurts.
And then at the end of the movie, Al murders her.
Yeah.
Actually actively kills her.
Yeah, when you said earlier, you're like, I'm surprised she hasn't been murdered. I was holding that in. I was like, well, I mean, she does.
Yeah.
She technically
but
does.
It was crazy to me, because while like he does kill her, I mean, it technically was in self-defense. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. I have very conflicting feelings because obviously he shouldn't have killed her.
Yeah.
But at the exact same time, she's trying to carve into him with a scalpel while he's handcuffed and unable to restrain her.
Yeah. I guess the difference is just that she was just going to like kind of physically assault him in a way, and he just responded by not even just like impulse. Like, I feel like at a certain point it stops being self-defense when you intentionally like hold it down for like minutes on end as she's like slowly dying. Like that's like there's a lot of opportunities to stop because you are defended at this point. But no, he just kept going, and then he kills her, and then he gets away with it kind of until he does. Yeah.
And we see I'm just gonna call him Schmidt because I don't remember
remember his name.
Schmidt's character comes in,
best man, and he's like, haha, you fucking slept with the nurse, haha. And Al is like, bro, she's fucking dead. And he's like, no she's not, and then he lifts up the pillow and you see her makeup like sprayed out, and he's like, oh, what the fuck. And then immediately his first reaction is to be like, you did nothing wrong. Yeah, this isn't your fault. This isn't your fault.
Yes.
And just to reassure and basically like be like, oh no, yeah, it was bound to happen. We're gonna fix this, and you're not gonna, because you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, any sympathy that I may have had about it being self-defense is immediately thrown out the window when they hide her body. Yep, and they burn her body.
Oh, yeah, it's just truly awful.
And then she gets the last laugh.
Yeah, which, okay, wait. Yeah, I'll talk about this now, actually. Okay, the ending. I want to talk about this because I don't know if you know this, if you saw this at all. That was not the original ending.
Oh.
Yes. So the original ending ended about that when her body was burned, and after like the scenes with like Ryan getting asked by the detective and like all those things, it basically just ended with her body getting burned, and it ended on that like kind of dark note. And then studio executives watched it and were like, this needs like a happier ending though. This is, that's a little dark. We should like get a happier. So then they mulled over a couple ideas. They're like, should we try to have her not actually die? They're like, no, that wouldn't make any sense. That's stupid. Okay, I know. And that's when they finally came up with the idea for that final scene at the wedding when she gets the last laugh and like fucks them all over.
I think that's much better than her just dying.
Yeah, I think I wrote in my notes, I was like, I'm still unsure of which I'd prefer, because I think they both work really well.
They serve a purpose.
Exactly, because I can get what the original ending would be going for, where it's like the men are the ones who ultimately like win.
Will continue to survive.
Because that's kind of the whole point of her murder scene to begin with, is that like the guy who's like in the wrong just told he didn't do anything wrong, and then they just erase it like it never happened, and no one remembers her. And I get what they were going for with that, but also I do think it's cathartic and really satisfying to see that like brought to a close there, especially with fucking Angel of the Morning playing over it and all that shit.
God, it was so good.
And like Ryan too, just getting like a final like, oh fuck yeah. Like
like the scheduled text messages. Laverne Cox's character gets the necklace that says Cassie.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing, is it's like I love the ending, so I'm not mad about it, but I really think I'm about even on it. Like, I would have been fine with the other ending as well. I think that would have worked, but I'm like, this also worked. Yeah. But I can see why some people like might feel one way or another, because I have seen, I believe, some people who have like complained, being like, oh, the original ending would have been better, and I'm like, well,
I see it, but also I feel like for a movie specifically that you're trying to get a point across, I almost feel like it's a warning that like, yes, men have gotten away with this for so long, but like times are changing now, and like women are speaking up, and you're gonna reach a point where these are not going to be crimes that you can just get away with anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's why the ending does ultimately work really well, and it's just great to see them all just like fucking lose.
It was so cathartic.
It really is. It's just like, you're like, oh, thank God. Oof. And with the text messages coming in too, and the music,
text messages are so good.
It hits the spot. Okay, I want to talk about Cassie now.
We've been talking about Cassie this whole episode,
but
bestie.
we're gonna be dissecting her a little more though. Okay. again, I want to just bring up, I love how fucking nuanced it is, where it does not like wholeheartedly portray her actions as good, and actually in many different scenes kind of almost criticizes her for like because it's like her actions, her intentions are very good, but also it's like she's basically given up her own life to this cause, to the point where it's like,
starts
who
driving
even is she?
her crazy.
Exactly, because it's like she's basically like had no life the last 10 years because of this. Like she dropped out of med school, she still lives with her parents, she's just working at a barista, she's done like absolutely nothing because she's not even living her own life really until like the little thing with Ryan. It seems like she hasn't really had a relationship ever either, because she's like not gonna do that. She literally has not been living her own life. If anything, ... she's living Nina's life, which makes her line at the end when she is like, oh yeah, I'm Nina Fisher, have like a kind of double meaning to it, because obviously she's saying it to fucking get a rise out of Al, but also it's like she kind of is like living as Nina at this point. Like that's all she is. There's not really a Cassie anymore. She's like it's eroded away at herself, and this like cause she's going for is basically, she's lost her life to it because she's so blindly been like following this cause. And I love that. I love that it's just so fantastically done.
It's done really, really well.
Yeah.
I also think, it leads to a lot of interesting discourse, because like you can't justify you can justify the meaning behind all of her actions, but you can't justify the means by most of them. Yeah. Like there comes a point where it's like pretty fucked up, like when she kidnaps the dean's daughter.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like that's fucked
up.
At
least she didn't actually leave her in a room with those guys.
She's like, I wouldn't do that. Like whatever. But
still, it's like, I mean, I guess it also goes to show how easy it is to just like pick her up too.
Yeah.
Like,
which is a problem.
Yeah, no, like she just did that so easily. Like within seconds, she was able to get that girl, like that teenage high school girl, in her car and be like, all right, let's go. Yeah, like it was that easy. And it definitely, but before they like reveal and she was like, no, I actually didn't do that. We as the audience don't know she didn't do that, because the last we saw she was picking her up, and you're like, holy shit, is she like, what? That's, oh my god.
Yeah. In the same way we didn't know if she actually got that woman raped.
Yeah. In the first Alison Brie's character, when she basically gets her super drunk and then has a guy like take her to a like one of the hotel rooms or something, and so that she just thinks that maybe she was like assaulted the next day. But has no idea.
Essentially, the guy was just paid to make sure that she got there safely, and that she didn't like drown in her own puke, and to just be there when she woke up.
Yep, which is just
that is crazy.
It's it was even worse that she didn't even like clarify with with Alison Brie's character for like 7 days or something. No. Like she left her just completely in the dark, which I mean, there is like the revenge there for the way that character had treated her best friend before,
but it's still fucked up.
It's still not, that doesn't make it good.
Fucked up.
Revenge and doing the same thing that's been done to you. If you do something bad to someone to serve as revenge for something bad they did, it's still bad.
Still, two wrongs do not make a right.
Exactly. It's still not good. I also just love the scene of her going out with the pipe and smashing that dude's car.
Oh my god, I wanted to talk to you about that, because that was the moment where I was like, oh no, this bitch is crazy. Like, love her to pieces, but what are you doing, my guy?
What I think around that point is when I was writing. I was like, at first I'm like, this is her Joker movie. And then after that, I was like, damn, you know what? This is almost like, it's like how like really like alt-right incels will like cling to the Joker as like their piece. They're like, no, Joker might be a bad guy, but everything he's saying is really is whatever. And like to them, that's like he's actually like saying really good things. He's just going about it wrong. I'm like, in this way, except not like actually more accurate would be like she's almost like it's like the feminist Joker movie really, where it's like she's going about things the wrong way, but she's actually saying like the right things. You know what I'm saying? It's obviously not a direct parallel, because I disagree with what most people think about the Joker movie. I think that the movie's very not great in a lot of ways.
We live in a society.
And then the fucking with her stripper like nurse get up at the end, she also just had like a Harley Quinn kind of feel to her. Like it really did. That's all I'm saying.
Another thing I wanted to point out is that at the end when the detective goes in and talks to Ryan, we see 2 detectives talk to the parents, but the male detective goes and talks to Ryan.
Yeah. And he doesn't even, like, he just is so casual about it too. Like, he doesn't even really care. He's like, oh yeah, whatever, man.
Like, listen, I listen to a lot of fucking true crime. Like, a lot of true crime. 90% of the time, it is the partner, the ex-partner, or, like, the husband. Like, that is who it is. And so for, like, this male detective to, like, walk in and be like, hey, oh my God, you working with pediatrics? Like, oh my God. Like, thank you for being a hero and a pinnacle of our community. Oh my, no, she went on a work trip, but you don't have proof.
And
you don't have proof, but she went, oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
No, I think what's also like damning there is that like he goes in already set with the kind of what would it be? He comes in already being with the story, I guess, that like, yeah, so she would have killed herself, right? Like that's already what he like. He doesn't offer that, like he doesn't try to pull that information out. He basically gives him a story to cling to. Yeah, he gives him an out, exactly. And then all Ryan has to do is just be like, yeah, she definitely seemed like she could do that. And then the guy was like
mentally stable.
And then the cop is just like, yeah, I assumed. And that's all that is. And then he's like, yeah, just come down to the station when you get a chance. I don't really care, whatever.
I wrote, what is the opposite of a redemption arc? Because that is what
doubling down.
That is what we got with Bo.
Yeah, it's there's a word for it actually. It's a regression arc almost.
Is it?
It's like character growth versus character regression. When you're regressing back into like your darker ways almost.
So in the lake house or whatever with Al, I want you to just try to see if you can find this clip because it is the look of recollection on Al's face when she says her name is Nina Fisher. Oh my God, it was so good. I thought all of the acting in this movie was incredible, specifically from Bo because of how quickly his character shifts. But that look of recollection on Al's face was like Oscar award winning.
Honestly,
it was really good.
All very terrific performances, which is also it's really cool because the director, I believe this was her directorial debut, the first film she directed. I'm trying to remember her last name. I know her first name was Emerald. I think it's Lemmer or Lamar or something.
I can look it up.
Yeah, look it up. I don't know where my phone is, but that's just like the fact that she was able to turn out such terrific performances, put together such a beautifully brilliant piece. Like it's just genius. She's awesome. I love her. A queen. Also, what was it? Fennel. Fennel. Okay, so Emerald Fennel.
Oh, Margot Robbie is a producer on it.
Yeah, so the film, I believe its script before it was shot or anything was actually sold to Margot Robbie's production company because she apparently I only found this out actually today when I happened to see it. Apparently it's like she has her own production company and they just sold it, so she's actually like one of the main producers.
It did win an Academy Award.
Yeah.
For writing.
As it should.
Original screenplay.
Good shit.
That's crazy.
The other interesting thing I was going to say about the performances is because, of course, I follow Bo Burnham very closely. And I know on the press tour, he'd talked a lot about how uncomfortable he was, like, acting at first. Like, like he just couldn't, like, he felt like he didn't have, like, the natural chops or rhythm to it. And he had to keep, like, retrying or something. And it was just really interesting hearing about how much he seemingly, like, he was talking about. He's like, I really struggled, like, actually acting for this.
Because it was good.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird because it was incredible.
I know. I was like, I would not. Like, it's mind-blowing because he's like so perfect in it.
It is nothing compared to Harry Styles' acting debut in Don't Worry, Darling.
Damn. Harry Styles will get a mention in every episode.
I will. Yeah. Because he's giving me the ick now. I used to really like Harry Styles, and then he took a nosedive when he started dating Olivia Wilde.
We only stand Bo Burnham
and Florence Pugh.
You
leave Florence Pugh in this podcast, please.
All right. Fair enough.
No, so there's been a resurgence of like people talking about Don't Worry, Darling. And so I think coming up we should have a mini episode because there was a few more things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. That will be coming as soon as we can film it. But I do think that we need to make a part 2, maybe not a full length episode,
like a mini-sode.
A mini-sode.
Yeah.
Just because I think there is interesting discourse that we left out.
No, I agree. There is. I know. We know exactly what it is too because we briefly talked about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Good stuff.
Good
all around.
stuff.
But Promising Young Woman, the film.
What are we watching?
The one I mentioned just now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not another one. I don't know.
You wouldn't go with the bit with me.
I refuse.
So funny. It got 5 Academy Award nominations.
Damn. I mean, it really is just like a brilliant piece of cinema.
Yeah.
And it's also okay. So I don't know if you've seen it on there because I can't remember exactly how COVID impacted the release of it. Does it say anything on there? Okay, because I know it apparently came out in 2021, and I misremembered because I thought it had come out earlier. I think it maybe premiered at like festivals before then, but I don't know. I'm like, I got thrown when I realized it came out in 2021 because I was like, oh yeah. And then I saw something about the COVID delaying it, and I was like, oh, I forgot all of this information. Wow, COVID was a thing. Remember that? Pandemics. Wild. Not Olivia Wilde, just regular Wilde. Another Don't Worry, Darling reference. For the fans, for the homies.
No, I'm not really seeing anything.
Damn.
There's a couple articles about how COVID-19 will affect women.
How will COVID-19 affect women? I need to know this pressing information.
I don't know. It's from planinternational.org.
I trust
Let's see.
My number one trusted news source. Let's see.
This is about what is COVID, how can we protect ourselves, how are children affected, mostly talking about education.
What does it say? What does it say? For audio listeners, Caitlin's face just like
contorted.
She had a very visceral reaction just now.
It says, how are girls and women affected by coronavirus? And the first sentence is, disease outbreaks increase girls and young women's duties caring for elderly and ill family members, as well as siblings who are out of school.
God damn.
Which I understand because, I mean, obviously coronavirus did not affect just the United States.
Yeah.
And so, like, I understand that, especially in other countries and cultures, like, it's more traditional for, like, women to take on the role of caretaker.
Yeah.
It still just feels like a weird blanket statement. Like,
Yeah,
this is how this is going to affect women.
Yeah. It sounds like it was actually a piece written for like the Spanish flu, and they just kind of repurposed it in 2020. And then let's just read it.
And then this says, due to the consequences of COVID-19, girls are being exposed to new risks, including child. But anyways, that was that article.
Yeah, so viewers and listeners at home, that is how COVID will impact women in the future, going forward. I don't know
when it was published.
God.
Promising Young Woman confuses viewers. That's what makes it brilliant.
So true. You know I love a confusing movie. That's what I talked about with The Lighthouse. Yeah. I will always stand a movie that leaves me confused. And that's again why it hurts me that the synopsis would give away so much about her motivations, because that's the best part.
USAtoday.com published December 21st, 2020. Actress Carey Mulligan says she'll get the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. Why is this an article? Like, what is happening?
Damn.
Like, yeah, go get your vaccine.
Really important.
But like, Jesus. Anyways, I need to not be looking at Google anymore.
We're just going through articles at this point.
We're out of content, guys. God. We're dried up.
Okay, I did have a couple interesting things to note, just from like very brief research, surface level glancing at news. One thing I thought was interesting, which was just like another comment from the director about like the work itself and some of the hidden meanings and themes. I found it very interesting was that she specifically notes that it was a very intentional choice to never give Cassie satisfaction from any of her acts of revenge, despite the fact that this is like kind of a revenge movie, unlike especially a lot of like male dominated revenge films where they're like going after people to get that satisfaction. Like John Wick is like trying to avenge his dead dog, so he murders like 1 million people to finally be satisfied and be like, I avenged them. She doesn't actually get that feeling of satisfaction. We're like, oh yes, me doing these horrible things totally fixed everything, and now I'm like, she never gets that satisfaction. That was like a very intentional
I actually
choice.
think you just brought up an incredible point that I don't think you were trying to make, but because we have been sitting here and we've been criticizing the choices that this character has been making as revenge for her friend. But like, you don't see people criticizing John Wick.
True.
You don't see people criticizing, Fast and Furious. You don't see people criticizing. Oh my God. That's an excellent point.
Honestly, I mean, that's fair.
Again, I don't think that good choices were being made, but also if you're gonna criticize this character for acting out of revenge, she doesn't really hurt anyone. Even when she tries, she gets murdered.
I will say, I think the one difference there is also just in the way that it's like written to be perceived, because I do think in this movie Cassie to some degree is written to kind of have that like specifically be portrayed as these aren't like morally perfect actions.
Exactly.
Whereas I think something like John Wick doesn't, like, they specifically don't write that in. So I don't think that's entirely our own like prejudices and biases. I think it's
part
often,
of it is though.
But I mean, like it's not like John Wick has any scenes where they're like, yes, doesn't he bad? I think I think if we're taking it from that view, we could say exactly the same thing. But like that's not the goal of that movie. Whereas I think that is with this one. I do still think it is like some degree, but I don't think it's like as heavy since it's like it's just different in intention. That's what I would say. But I do still think it's a very good point to make that like we don't see them the same.
We tend to very heavily criticize women as opposed to male counterparts who are doing essentially the same thing.
No, that's entirely fair, honestly. I think that's for sure.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah. The only other little tiny note I wanted to make before maybe we hop into scandals is just something interesting. I saw that there's apparently a lot of speculation that because Margot Robbie's production company is the one who bought it, that she was maybe going to originally be the star of the movie.
I fucking hate you.
Oh, is that?
No, it's not exactly that, but that leads perfectly into the scandal.
Well, scandals. Let's go.
So, there was a reviewer for Variety, who wrote a review of the movie, and he said that it was skillful, entertaining, and challenging, but it was an odd choice of the actress for the lead role, and suggested that maybe Margot Robbie, who is a producer on the movie, might have been better suited for the lead. He says, Mulligan is a fine actress, seems a bit of an odd choice as this is admittedly many-layered, apparent femme fatale. Margot Robbie is a producer here, and one can perhaps too easily imagine the role once have been intended for her. Whereas this star, Cassie, wears her pickup bait gear like bad drag. Even her long blonde hair seems a put-on. The flat American accent she delivers in her lowest voice register likewise seems a bit meta, though it's not quite clear what the quote marks around this performance signify. Still, like everything here, this turn is skillful, entertaining, and challenging, even when the eccentric method obscures the precise message.
Huh. That's bizarre. What the fuck?
So about 11 months later, Carey Mulligan singled out his review.
Okay.
And challenged his conclusions about her casting, as well as his reference to Margot Robbie. Sorry, I'm reading this point blank, so you might want to link it.
No, I refuse to give them the fucking credit for this. How dare they?
She describes it as misogynistic.
Yeah, because it was blatantly.
It felt like it was basically saying that I wasn't hot enough to pull off this kind of crazy ruse. It drove me so crazy. I was
literally,
like,
that kinda is what
really,
you're saying,
for
yeah.
this film, you're going to write something that is so transparent now in 2020. I just couldn't believe it. And so then Variety updated his review on their website, adding an editor's note, and then apologized to her for the review's insensitive language.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which I think leads into well, okay, and I just read this too. It's the reviewer then says, I did not say or even mean to imply Mulligan isn't hot enough for the role. I'm a 60-year-old gay man. I don't actually go around dwelling on the comparative hotness of young actresses.
Okay, that's like a little fun.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
what I think is interesting is I think this leads into a conversation about like the portrayal of, I don't know how to word this tactfully. There is an ongoing problem of people not believing victims because they don't think that person is hot enough for a man to want to rape them, which is, rape can happen to anybody. It can happen to no matter your age, religion, appearance, size, gender, sex. It is something that can happen to anyone. And while I do think that there's safety tactics in place that people should be observing, it's also like not a helpful conversation to just be teaching women to like not get raped. And this is awful. And this, I also, again, I want to say this tactfully. I do want to point out what's happening across the pond in Iran. I think that especially with us talking about rape, that we need to be amplifying people's voices. And the women of Iran are really struggling. And so I don't have anything prepared to say. I don't want to say anything wrong. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But please do your research about what's happening over in Iran. And we need to, as a community, be supporting them over there.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. But yeah, that was a major scandal, is essentially she wasn't hot enough.
Which is just...
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh
I mean,
my
I guess
God.
it's better since he was a gay man, so his intentions may have been slightly different. But still, very bad thing to say. Not good at all, really.
Yeah.
Just nah.
Yeah.
Nah. It gave off the energy almost of like when someone will be talking about sexual assault or like advocating for like some of that shit, and then people will respond and be like, well, you're not even hot enough to get assaulted, so like,
Which is
why would
crazy.
that even...
It is crazy to me that this is people's mindsets.
Literally.
Like, oh my God.
I mean, they literally even reference it in the movie too, because that's literally, we talked about this earlier. Fucking Neil, is that his name? The Coke writer guy that we've mentioned a lot of times. That's literally what he says. He's like, you're not even that hot anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just, also funny that reviewer had the balls to say that after that line was in the movie.
I know.
It really didn't get the
feels
right
like
takeaway.
Yeah. Like,
maybe didn't understand it fully.
I feel like a lot of times, you know, how an actress looks or an actor looks is very heavily dependent on the role. And so I think that it was an interesting choice to like, it was a very intentional choice that it was not Margot Robbie. It was another incredibly attractive actress who just isn't, I don't even know. Like, it's just, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Like,
I don't
I'm
think I would
sorry
have
that-
even liked the movie nearly as much if Margot Robbie was the lead.
Like, I'm sorry that Casey Mulligan just looks like a human being.
Yeah.
Like, she is very hot.
Casey Mulligan's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about quote of the movie.
Quote of the movie time. Let's go. We've talked about a lot of our quotes, but we're going to go back through them. Let me grab my notebook.
Okay.
All right, let's see if I can find my actual quotes. Where are they at? Somewhere, probably.
Oh, I didn't even mention pigtails. Pigtails are a big ick of mine. And I think one of the characters at the beginning comments about how cute she would look in pigtails.
And you're like, no, she wouldn't.
Well, because I think it's trying to infantize women.
Oh, okay.
And so fuck you.
That's fair. Yeah.
So the quotes that I have written down are, "You can spit in it if you want."
Yeah, I have that down as well. Well, right before that, in one of the scenes towards the beginning, I also had, "How old are you?" Old enough, right? Very dark line that I was just like, oh my God, that's bad. That's real bad. That's fucking bad.
We have, of course, my main contender for quote of the movie, which is, "Why do you guys have to ruin everything?"
Yeah, so that's a pretty good one. I have a quote from Coke novel guy. "I'm a nice guy. I thought we had a connection, I guess." And then she like calls him out for not even like knowing her name.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
This is it. I don't think this is quote of the movie, but it's very funny, and I think it back when we liked Bo Burnham, it's very cute. Is they're at the family dinner for the first time, and the dad is like, "Oh, so you're a pediatrician. Your parents must be so proud." And Bo Burnham says, "Oh no, they wanted me to be a DJ."
Yep. One of the funniest. I have that down as well. It's so good. Another really funny line from Bo Burnham's character is when he's like talking about how from behind it looks like she's like a child.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Stop kissing that child." I probably shouldn't yell that part. And it's just like, it's too good. Oh my God.
I have another Bo Burnham quote.
Okay.
And it's they're lying in bed and he's talking about how her mom is so hot and if like she'll set him up with her mom. And then they like admit that they love each other and he says, "I want to buy you a bicycle."
That one's really funny. I do like that one a lot. I have another one. This is one from Alison Brie that just like irked me. Just it was intentionally written, I think, this way, but it was just like when she's like, "Oh, do you have kids?" "No." "You'll get there." And I was like, I was like, bro, it's
Women
like a fucking requirement
without children.
No, literally. Oh my God. I think actually in that scene, this is not a quote. This is just a note. They rhyme, quote, note. A note I wrote down when she's kind of talking about how she was like, Alison Brie's character was like a feminist in college and like med school and all that shit. But now she's like, "Well, I have a job now." And it's like not a thing anymore.
Want feminists. And it's like, that's the point.
Yeah, no. And at one point, I just literally was like, "Does capitalism kill feminism and feminists?" Where it's like, as she's kind of climbing up, it's like, "No, I'm more focused on my career and like my stable family and men and children. And I just can't be a feminist anymore." And I was like, yeah, well, that's...
I saw, I don't want to get too political here, but I saw a TikTok today where someone was saying that they had to pretend to be liberal to write something on a discussion post for college so that they would get the points because the teacher would dock them for writing. That. But then someone like stitched it and was like, "So, thank you for bringing up this incredible point of the views of Republicans are not logic based and therefore don't apply in an academic setting."
There's like so many different like very like scientists and stuff who are like, of course, like supporting ridiculous things, and it's like they'll openly be like, "Oh yeah, no, I had to just like lie basically in school to get like to pass everything," and it's like how do you go through so many years of school like learning all this information and be like, "No, none of it was real"? Like what's the point? What
why would you do that?
Literally, it's oh my God. Anyway.
And then we both won't be doctors, you fucking failure.
I have that one down as well. That one I really like that.
Yeah.
One. That one hurts.
Again, can you guess what every girl's worst nightmare is?
I have that one down as well. I said my name is Nina Fisher a lot. I do think there's a lot of good shit there. Or, okay, actually, this is another really good one. In that scene with Al and her, where he goes, "We were kids," and she goes, "If I hear that one more time,
yeah."
Oh my God, dude, that shit's too good.
In the same scene, but the next morning when she's dead, and Schmidt comes in to, I think his name's Joe, comes in And he's like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Al says, I don't know. It kind of seems like it is.
That's pretty funny. I like that they're able to crack on a joke too, like after such a serious bit. Yeah. I have like the dichotomy too of like as he's actively killing her, he's screaming, "This is your fucking fault!" Yeah. And then it's immediately, you know, right after that is when like Schmidt comes in and is like, "Yeah, this isn't your fault." Yeah. And it's like just fully like he is reassuring himself of that. His friend is reassuring it even further. It's just like, yeah. I'd say personally, my nomination for quote of the movie though is the one. It's every guy's worst nightmare being accused like that. Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I love it.
Yeah, I think
that's quote of the movie.
I love that.
Although there was a really good contender for what was the other one I said? Oh, why do you guys have to ruin everything?
Right. That's also a really good one. Yeah. All right. Well, then we'll officially say, if you're in agreement with this one, it's every guy's worst nightmare being accused like that, followed by, can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is quote of the movie.
Right there.
Roll the clip.
You know, I was affected by it too, okay? I mean, it's every guy's worst nightmare getting accused like that.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
The clip has been rolled. Editing magic. Oh my goodness. Final score time is what time it is. I'll ask the question to you first. What would you score this movie?
A 9.
I'm going to top you with a 9.5. Okay. My highest score yet. Topping the Lighthouse's score. Crazy times. I didn't like. I've only seen it once, to be fair. But going into it, I was not thinking it'd be like 9.5. But as I was watching, I'm like, I can't give this
so
less.
Good.
It's yeah. So I think that evens out between us as a 9.25. 9.5, 9.2.
Yep.
Yeah, so 9.25.
9.7.
What the hell?
I can do math. It's just because I'm a girl. I'm bad at math.
Well, that's the Cynical Cinephiles final score. It's 9.25. Oh my God. As you say the score, it's like up there. Unless you're an audio listener, unless you can't visually see it. You just hear us saying it. Sorry.
That's so funny.
So, Caitlin, that was my pick. What is your pick for next week? What's the next thing we're watching? What are you watching next? Know? Yes.
That the love of our life, our queen, my favorite person to maybe ever exist, has a new movie that just so happens to come out next week.
That was some high praise. But yeah, I did. I think. We
are watching The Wonder.
The Wonder. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Florence Pugh.
It is a historical fiction. Which
I know nothing about it.
We'll see. I don't typically like historical fiction.
Neither do I.
But it has Florence Pugh.
That's already a win.
But I am also reading the book, so I'll have the book finished. And I was reading the book before I knew it was being made into a movie.
Yeah.
But the author of the book is Emma Donoghue, and she wrote The Room with Brie Larson.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have very high hopes. I haven't seen or read that book, but I heard it was incredible. Yeah. So I have very high hopes going into this.
Okay.
Essentially just a really basic synopsis. It takes place with a young girl who her family has claimed that she has not eaten anything for months. And so Florence Pugh's character is a nurse who's coming in to verify the story. And the reason that they said that their daughter hasn't eaten anything for months is because she has been blessed by God.
Interesting.
And so I think we're going to get a lot of like interesting discourse there.
Yeah, I'm interested. I will say I did watch the trailer for the movie and I was like, this looks boring. But Florence Pugh, I'm sure is still going to turn in a terrific performance. And I'm open. I'm not going to go in being like, I'm going to hate this. I'm open to see how it is. Even if I don't tend to like historical fiction, I'm interested. I'm excited to see how it is. And it'll also, I think, be really interesting since you've read the book. I think that'll be curious.
We'll be able to kind of figure out where there's...
wonderful. Because the wonder, it's going to be wonderful episode. Get it?
Darling.
Well, with that lovely little bit out of the way, that's the end. I think we're at the conclusion of the episode.
It is.
For today.
What the fuck was that?
Vocals.
Cute.
I'm like good with them. All right. Do you want to say the things that we say?
What do we say? We have like 4 episodes. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts.
We're finally there.
We're finally there. Thank God. I was getting
forever.
worried.
Like darling.
Don't worry. Comment on YouTube. You can follow us on all forms of social media. Usually it's at Cynical Cinephile. A couple of them at Cynical Cinephile Podcast.
If you're on YouTube, all of those links are going to be in the description below, so
Yep.
you should be able to find our handles there.
Rate us on Spotify.
5 stars because we are
Stars.
We are 5. We are infants
We are
almost.
this many.
Okay. Well, thank you guys all. Have a wonderful rest of your nights or days or whenever the fuck you're watching this.
Okay, I think we should go now. I
Yeah.
gotta go to bed.
I have like shit to do. So
I have to wake up
Get
at,
the
like-
fuck away from me. What the hell are you doing? You too. What the fuck? I don't want to talk to you, any of you.
It's okay.
Motherfuckers.
We'll head out and we can talk shit about him.
Have a good night. God.